and so I did that for ages, and then, you know, and that was kind of off and on because I would like go on tour and stuff like that, and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, that's completely different from everything musical. Fighting.
yeah. I'm going mining next week, or on. Oh, I forgot to book my hotel. I'm going mining on Sunday, or Sunday to Monday. Like straight up, like digging into the side of a mountain.
Yeah, that's completely
Which will be
different.
fun, like looking for gems and all that stuff. That's
Yeah.
I got really, really into that, and then my mom got really, really into that, and so now it's like, you know, I have to go because I introduced her to it, and so now basically she always wants to go mining.
Yeah, that's a super niche hobby if I've ever heard of a niche hobby before.
Yeah, geology, right? It's boring.
Sorry, just adjusting some
No, that's okay.
stream settings. All right, so we are live. So what we're just gonna kind of you know just hang out for a bit,
Yep.
and then once we get a rolling mass of people or some
Cool.
people chatting, we'll start doing. And the way I always do this is like, you know, we'll just kind of chat for like an hour, and, you know, then we'll just kind of let people ask questions throughout. People ask some questions at the end, and then after the stream I unlist it, and then it goes live like a week later or something.
Okay. Cool.
But
And
yeah,
do you like unlisted for your Patreon members, or is that
I
how they
do.
usually...
Yeah,
Cool.
gotta give some reason for people to join the join the
No,
club.
yeah, that's my stream was initially Patreon only, and everybody was like, "No, make it public." I was like, "Okay." So
Yeah.
they're all really
Yeah.
happy with it.
Yeah, because like I do it that way because then it's that way like any Q&A at the end is like extra special for either being at the stream or like being part of the Patreon. So it's, you know, I like,
How many viewers do you usually get on your stream?
it can be anywhere from like 20 to like 100 depending on.
Yeah, it's always super different. It depends just like what people are seeing in the live bar.
Yeah.
So we're not streaming on YouTube right now, are we? Or are we?
Yeah.
Like oh, to the public we are?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I won't talk about like a company that I'm courting to have streams. Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
good.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Save that for after.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, actually, I'm trying to get like a coalition of streamers to sort of, work with a company. But,
yeah, we can talk about that after.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to like out them just yet and put them on the spot.
Yeah, it's crazy how variable live streams can be, and it depends partially on like the guest, but also just like the day of the week and probably the time. Also, I just kind of do these whenever people are available, and these videos the video versions end up doing decently well. They're not as popular as like my main stake, like hardcore Facebook ad music marketing tutorial videos, but like the core people who dig the interviews like love them, so it's always fun.
Huh.
And yeah, man.
So you do like Facebook? Is that your best marketing social media network?
Yeah, I most of my music marketing results come from Facebook ads. I mean, I do run YouTube ads, but most of my money's spent in Facebook ads.
Okay.
And you know, that's one thing I'm gonna ask you once we kind of start is like different things you've tried over the years for promoting your music, because you have a pretty long history of. I read through your gigantic essay of a Spotify bio. I didn't even know you could have it that long.
I don't know what you're talking about. Actually, I need to look at it.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
your the Flashbulb bio.
Yeah.
It's like it's the longest Spotify bio I've ever seen.
It's amazing.
Like I thought they limited it to like 350 characters, but I think yours is longer than the limit.
I think mine may have been written. Okay, I'm looking at it now, seeing if I have a. Yeah, it's so funny how. Oh my God! Yeah, this is funny.
Yeah.
Who wrote this?
It's funny that you don't even know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have more listeners. I'm looking at my own Spotify stats now. I have more listeners in Sydney, Australia, than I do in like LA.
Yeah, you have a lot in London too, which is interesting.
Yeah. London's always been like the biggest city in terms of like, you know, if I played a show, where I would, you know, ideally get the most money. Seattle, that's weird too. Like Seattle's population, like you think I'm from Chicago, so I don't know, whatever that.
Yeah, it's funny how surprising this all is for you. you don't look at them that much, I'm guessing, right? The Spotify photo stats.
I feel like I've looked at I've gone to like the Spotify for Artists thing, and I've like looked at the stats there, and so here's a really good fable tale, I guess. A really good thing to learn from, I suppose. I played a show in northern Wisconsin, all the way in the tip top of Wisconsin, and it was a big festival. And I usually hate festivals.
Yeah.
And it was like in July, and it was like 50 degrees up there at the time, or it was just generally kind of cold up there anyway, even in the summer.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to go. Like, my agent was like, "No, come on, it'll be good." And I was like, "No, I just don't want to go. Like, I do not want to play this. I hate playing festivals. This is like 2 12-hour days of driving with all my gear. Nobody's going to come. It's not worth hiring like a tour manager for that one show. I'm not going to have anybody with me. You can't really sell merch successfully at festivals. So, I'm not even going to have a merch person, and I'm literally going to drive to this festival and then drive home. Like, I'm not even going to, there's no hotels up there. So like, I just didn't want to do it." And so I said no, and then they offered more, and I said no, and they offered more and more and more. And I ended up, I don't want to like name out this, I don't even remember the name of the festival, to be honest, but I ended up being paid more than anybody else on the bill. And they're like, there's some artists who I guess objectively were probably bigger names than I was. I think there was one or two that was like, so who would bring more people out to a festival.
Yeah.
And I'm not that good at bringing like, hippies out to festivals. Like, that's not my thing, right? And so I was being paid way more than anybody else, and I was like on the third or fourth row on the flyer. Like, and I was just like, wait, why would you put the person you're paying the most down there? Like, nobody's going to see that. So like, whatever you were hoping to accomplish by getting my fans to pay your exorbitant ticket fees for the festival weekend, why do you do this? And yeah, and I kind of like, I remember writing this blog post about it at the time, and like just trying to like figure out the conversation, like, trying to figure out like the metrics of this. And I was actually taking the Spotify numbers, because I feel like that's a really accurate way of looking at like how popular someone is.
Yeah.
Is just the listener. It's like Last FM, but you don't have an option out of it, right?
Yeah.
And so and so I was like looking at Spotify numbers, and I was like, okay, I'm like, I'm on top on Spotify numbers. I'm on top of how much I'm being paid, but I'm way down here. And so I came up with this conspiracy theory that they were making some artists, they're bargaining with the flyer, and they're saying, we'll put you on top of the flyer for 200 less, or whatever.
Oh,
however the deal would work. Because I have heard of that happening, and I was like, is that actually happening? That's really crappy. And dumb too, because I don't want to be on top of the flyer. Like because I don't want to play this show. And if I don't feel well, I'm canceling, especially if I'm fourth down. Like, I'm just not going to go then. But if I'm top on the flyer, then I'm gonna be like, well, there's going to be people that paid tickets for me, and and I'm going to feel bad about it. So anyway, I went there and I asked, and the main promoter of the show was like, that's a really good question, man. Like, that's like that. Yeah, that's a good question. So he found out, and they went by Facebook likes.
Oh.
And I didn't pump my page full of fake likes, like so many of the, because there's like DJs, like people who it was like their first DJ gig, and they were above me on the flyer. And I was just like, wow, so that's really dumb that you guys went by that metric. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. I'm happy with it. I'm not complaining, but I was just wondering, why the hell would you do this? Like, you're just throwing money out the window.
Yeah, that makes like zero sense. I mean, like, I guess maybe in a certain year that would have made sense, but like, just think about how easy it is to fake your Facebook likes. I mean,
right? Yeah.
Like I've tried, like, there's a way you can run Facebook ads for page likes, and you can literally get it to 1 penny per page like, and of course it's just like bots and fake BS.
Sure.
But like, you can do it, and so if you wanted to overinflate your numbers for like a show or a label or something. You could, and it's kind of, I mean, I'm sure that those people don't pay attention to Facebook page likes anymore because of that, but
yeah, I mean, people pay a lot of attention to YouTube subscribers.
Yeah.
And I don't go through other people's YouTube channels and like, try and figure out who's buying subs or not, but oftentimes I could have an idea of it. I'm like, oh, this person's engagement is nowhere near their subscribers. Like, this is pretty easy.
Yeah, for sure. Like, if you can tell, if someone has like 100,000 subscribers and their last video has like 200 views after a week or something, and like two likes and 0 comments or something. It's very stupid.
Yeah, that, and then Instagram's even worse, I think, with that.
Yeah,
is I've just hit 10,000 on Instagram, and I've put no effort into, like, I've never been like, because I think I tried to put effort in it for like maybe a few months, where I was actually like, my booking agency was kind of giving me the rundown of, like, you know, always use hashtags and always, you know, research your hashtags and have this, and and so I was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna get on this Instagram and get a bunch of followers, and it just failed miserably. And I just didn't care. And so, you know, I just post like stories of ducks and my dog, and, you know, and then occasionally like just something to promote a YouTube post. And so that one was very, very hard to build. But my engagement's off the charts. Like, you know, like my click-through rate when I actually look at it on Instagram is like super high, because everybody's like so organic, because they could barely hang on to my boring ass Instagram. You know? So when I post something of an actual like audio product, or you know, even if it's just me playing an instrument or something, the engagement's much higher.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, if I think of how I'm following you on Instagram, it's not because I saw like a post you did. It's because I know you from YouTube, and I wanted to go follow you on Instagram. You know, and that's kind of how I guess that's like the best way to do it, because you're not like trying to grow in a platform. You're just kind of growing because people actually like want to hear from you, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is kind of a funny conversation, or funny that like we're talking today or this week. So I just did this video where I went to the swamp, and just that video just came out. And I'm kind of like, I have like one more place in Georgia that's like really uncomfortable and dangerous, and I'm not sure if I want to do it. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, then I have to leave Georgia. Like, if I want to continue to get these soundscapes, especially if I like move, you know, once I start doing with an ambisonic microphone and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking to myself, like, with the amount of free crap I get sent in general, you know, or get offered to be sent or whatever, just as a YouTuber. Yeah, you would think that there would be a pretty good incentive for like hotels, Airbnbs. And I was like, there's probably like some sort of network that works with people who are filming and, you know, doing stuff like that. Like, you would assume that somebody had gotten that.
Yeah.
And so I did some Googling, and all it is hotels saying like, I got 15 influencers last year asking me for a free room, and like complaining about it. And I thought to myself, like 3 years ago, I would see that and I would be like, man, these people are just so obnoxious to be expecting a free room. And now I look at it and I was like, wait a minute, like, you had an like, you know, you're probably not booked up 100% every night. So it probably costs $8 out of your pocket to rent, you know, to have a room that would have otherwise gone vacant. And, you know, and you probably turned down somebody with 500,000 followers who
who might film like a budget. Yeah, because that person might make like a, you know, a stupid TikTok or something from the front of the building, and they might get some brand exposure or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, it's so easy to just like watching what's that guy, Casey
Neistat.
Yeah. Like I never even considered. I never thought about like first class flying or any. And I still. I mean, I don't like do first class flying or anything, but I've never thought about like really nice hotels or asking promoters to put me in them or anything until his channel. And you know, and his channel's just, he gets free stuff like that, and he just says this is what it's like to be in this awesome first class.
Like
that
crazy
like, wow, I want to experience that.
Was it United, I forgot it was Qatar Airlines or something. Gave him like the ultra business class thing, and there's like a shower on the plane, and there's like a bed. It was like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I have aerophobia, and like I hate flying, and so something like that, you know, in a world where I'm doing a little bit better, you know, could actually appeal to me. Where it's like, that's, you know, rather than being like scrunched in, that's actually for the very little that I do fly, that would probably be good, you know. Yeah,
that would probably help a little bit, you know, having a 5-course meal of like the finest foods and getting a shower in the middle of it.
Yeah, because usually I just like try and go to the bathroom a lot. Like I'm just like, oh, gotta pee again, gotta walk here, and just keep myself busy, like doing something.
Cool. All right, so it's actually past 8:15. We got some comments. Someone said, "Legends, woo the flashbulb, and more dangerous than gators?" ? So, I forget what you said. Something about some place being dangerous. So
Yeah,
Charles Ray.
definitely more. I mean, it's not like it has to be a secret. I really want to do impulse responses inside a cave,
Oh yeah.
and I don't have any experience. I mean, I went like spelunking at a very easy cave once, and the place I want to go to is probably in intermediate to advanced.
Yeah.
Uh, and so
Is that
it's just
actually
a
what it's
matter of
called? Spelunking.
yeah.
Oh, that's a fun word.
Yeah, and I mean it's pretty treacherous and terrifying, and
I
it's
can
like
imagine.
it's one of those things where if one thing went wrong, then everything would go wrong. And so
Jesus.
yeah, but yeah, so I mean that's that to me. I feel like statistically that's way more dangerous than gators.
Yeah, yeah. So the way I normally like start off the I guess the official like intro for what'll be the video is if you could just like introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are, what you do,
Sure,
what you're all
sure.
about.
I'm Ben Jordan. I've released music for about 20 years, well, more than that, 20 some years as the Flashbulb, which is sort of kind of genre wise all over the place. But has like some electronic inspiration, has jazz inspiration behind it. I've done it all. I've toured. I've composed for television and commercials for many, many years. Did that. Now I'm a YouTuber, and I sort of my beginning of YouTube was kind of just applying some knowledge and skill that I've acquired throughout my career and as a hobby almost. And then the pandemic happened and I canceled, like I had something like 20 some odd tentative tour dates that just went out the window. And I was like, well, I have a YouTube channel, and I kept going with that. And now I'm moving on to more like sciencey things and places where I actually want to be in YouTube, and kind of like keep pushing the bar higher and higher and seeing where it takes me. And now I'm here on this channel. Hi.
Yeah, and so originally when I mentioned that I started watching your channel a couple years back when I saw your Arturia video, and then like up until right before I hit you up, I thought you were. I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but just a YouTuber, quote unquote. I didn't know that you also had like, I mean, you were like signed to a label. You have your own sort of label thing now. You have like 150,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. You've toured. You've done festivals, and so you've done a lot of cool stuff. So I thought you'd be a pretty cool. I guess you'd be like a great person to just kind of pick your brain and kind of learn. I guess one, how you kind of get started in actually taking your music seriously as a as like a business, and then aside from the music stuff and how you've kind of grown that over the years, also how you have transitioned to YouTube, and because you have a channel of like almost 70,000 subscribers, and you've also done a great job of like infusing your personality into everything you do, which is cool. Like on Twitter, it's always great seeing all your spicy takes on things, or not necessarily even spicy takes, but
I'm bitchy. I'm a bitchy man. Yeah.
It's great, like just seeing the post and then people's reactions sometimes, and So, anyways, like I think a good place to start is kind of like, when did you get into music, and like how do you start taking it seriously, and what was the kind of growth phase that kicked it off?
Yeah, so I was into music when I was like 5 or 6. I never had lessons or anything, but I really wanted a guitar at a state fair that my grandfather brought me to, and he got it for me. And then I remember seeing Buddy Rich on the Muppets, and that was like the first music that I was like, oh, I want to be that guy, that drummer guy. I want to be him, but I had a guitar, and I was totally okay playing the guitar, but so my grandfather at the same time, I'm from South Chicago, and so jazz was like a big part of the community at the time growing up. Also, I'm 41, so like this is
really?
Like, we're talking like the early 80s here.
This is unrelated, but I thought you were like 35 or something, so I guess
thanks.
You look young for your age.
Yeah, thank you. And so I got so I was really into jazz. Then I got into I was in a couple different bands. It seemed like at that point the only bands I could really be in were like rock and metal bands, and I kind of, was just more of a virtuoso with all the instruments, like, or I wanted to be. I was just way more masturbatory, I guess, is the way that you would look at it from like a general genreless perspective, is I was way
Yeah.
more masturbatory than everybody else. And so finally I just got a drum machine. And then my first instinct was, well, I'm going to program this drum machine to play things that Buddy Rich can't even play, to play things that like I haven't even heard from the jazz world. And so the
Yeah.
DR660, I think, was the first drum machine I had, and you could turn quantization off and then go in the step mode. And so I was able to like program these really crazy, which would now be like referred to as like snare rushes or drills or something like that. And so yeah, that was my music style, like at this time, just really batshit insane music. And that got, and then I started, somebody told me about Aphex Twin and other things, and I started, over in England you had this whole scene going on, and Venetian snares in the US, like I think at one time me and him were kind of like the two like IDM musicians on mp3.com. And yeah, and then just toured and grinded for a really long time. Then got into composing, ad composing, stuff like that, because I'm still very musical. I've always been like a very on the electronic music spectrum. I've always been on the very like melodic spectrum in one way.
Did
or
you
another.
say ad composing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like television composing in general, and then ad composing. I really, I mean, I hate it, but I also like it. I don't really do it much anymore.
I had Tommy Z on the channel a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of funny. I never even heard of this kind of making music for ads until him, and then it's just funny hearing you bring it up too, because it sounds like it's like a pretty giant industry.
It was. I think it definitely was. It's had like so. Here's a really good example, and I don't want to like name agencies here, but I worked for a composing agency. And I wrote a pitch for them, like an investment idea, after working for them for so many years, where I was like, I was living in South Chicago at the time, and I went out, I flew out to like have a meeting with them, and I was like, all right, hey, I think that this is, I watched my mom use a TiVo to go past advertisements. And at that point, I decided that like this isn't my future, because this industry is going to collapse, and in the function that it is right, the way it functions right now is going to be different. Right. And the budgets, music and sound, as always in every industry, everything, they always get the shit end of the stick. And so we're gonna lose our budgets first before the editor loses his, or
for the actor or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And so yeah, and they weren't interested, but I had this whole plan. I was like, we should move south, because you can buy a mansion at the time. You could buy a mansion in Atlanta, for example, or in one of these cities. And I used Atlanta as just this broad example, not having any actual intentions of Atlanta being the place. And then I was like, we can basically have it be a game composing studio. So like, and I used, for example, Gearbox as an example at that time. Yeah. And I was like, Gearbox, they don't have their own huge audio department like Activision does. So, but at the same time, so they're always like hiring out all these different freelancers, and we could just manage that and have one big post-production house and have an audio developer and have this. And so wrote out this big plan, and they were like, no, we're good with advertising. And I was like, all right, fine. And weirdly enough, like 5 years later, just not as part of that plan, but I just sort of ended up moving to Atlanta, or north of Atlanta. Not Gearbox, but a very similar game company. I ended up like being hired as literally doing what I said I would do, but like without their money and without them profiting off of it. And so but to answer your question better, it was lucrative. And it was, you could make a living doing it, and I made a good living doing it for a couple of years, like where the money was actually like really good. But it was its own world, it was like sort of a mix between like what you would expect from like Mad Men and now, where it's like it's, I guess a little bit more modern, obviously. A lot of people like running old Pro Tools rigs, like just a lot of things that like a lot of dumb decisions studio wise, but
Yeah.
I liked how it felt like boot camp because you would get a lot of jobs. They'd have really crazy turnaround times, and they'd be like, oh, we need, a 1920s swing turning into, blazing guitar solos and then turning into, hip hop for the ending, and it all has to be on cue. And
Yeah.
then, and we need this in, 24 hours. And you just be like, okay,
Jesus.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And then it was out of your hair, which I liked because when I was younger, I was always like, I want to compose for film, but a film score takes 6 months. And like, I don't want to work on somebody else's project for that long unless I'm being like really, really paid well for it.
Yeah.
And advertising, it's just, quicker, it's out of your hair, and then you get to work on whatever you want. And what this is building up to is, as the flash bulb, the part of my career that I actually really enjoyed doing, writing for ads, people like, a lot of people would be like, well, that's kind of a sellout and this and that, but to me it was like totally the opposite, because I was able to have enough money to where I just didn't give a shit what anybody thought about my albums. I got to do whatever I want in my albums, and I stopped reading reviews, I stopped reading people's opinions, and I just did whatever I wanted to. And I feel like you could see the evolution of my music like evolve in its own unique way as a result of that.
Yeah.
And so in a weird way, the selling out kind of allowed me to be more artistic, because
that's actually the same thing Tommy said about it. He said a lot of people will say it's like selling out, but he said it gives you, you're making, you're essentially making a living, or at least a part of your living, from your music, and it frees you up financially to actually do whatever you want. And
and as long as your ears can handle that much audio work, which is like, it's a weird way to put it, but like, your ears get tired after being in session all day and stuff. And some people seem to experience that a lot worse than others. And I guess I don't. Like, as of right now, even, I probably work 14 plus hours a day. So
damn.
Yeah, just all I do is work.
Me too, but it's not all music. At least not like things where I need my ears to work decent. So I haven't. Yeah. I've had that happen before. I mean, like periods where I'm like mixing and mastering like an album. And you want to get it done in a reasonable time to deliver to either your band or for a client. And so you even working like 3 hours in a row, I just need a break. Like a half an hour break to just kind of reset your ears. And then at some point I would kind of rely on to kind of push myself a little further. I'd rely on some of those metering tools you can have. Like Isotope has all those kind of audio spectrum tools and loudness tools, and those kind of help you kind of push a little further. Obviously you can't blindly trust them, but
I've thought about doing a video comparing some of those and stuff, because I think that they are pretty great. Like, they give you good suggestions to like start with. It's almost like, they find you the preset you would find on a synth, and then you tune it to like your liking. Almost kind of like that.
Yeah, and if your ears are kind of spent for the day, but you still want to work a little more, it's a kind of a good way to be productive without, I guess, wasting your time. Being able to do something that's actually remotely useful.
I've noticed that, like, moving to semi-open or open-ended earphones or ear monitors, like those have helped a lot too. Like, just if I'm just doing something like video editing where where it doesn't have to be like perfect or something, but those, because it just kind of feels like you have air in your ears. It's not like your ears are in a vacuum or something.
Yeah, I have the Sennheiser HD 650s, and these are like completely open. You can see and they're really nice. Like, you can just wear them all day, and you don't feel that, like, I don't know, almost air bubble around your ears kind of effect if you're wearing closed backs.
I kind of feel that in this room. Like, I made this room too good in terms of like I mean, it wasn't because of my skill. I think I just got really lucky with like making this room dead and EQ'd about as good as it gets in a studio room. And and it's kind of like stepping into a vacuum. Like, it's pretty, it gets rough. I'm like, man, I kind of wish I just
left a wall bare so you had a little bit of reverb in there.
yeah.
So jumping back to your music project, the flashbulb.
Yeah.
Currently, you're at 150,000 monthly listeners, 43,000 followers, and you mentioned you did tours and stuff. But I guess like at what point did you kind of start realizing that your music on itself was going well? Like was there a certain thing you did to kind of get your name out there, or was it just starting with shows and just kind of getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Did you have like a manager? Did you have a marketing partner or?
So, I it's weird. Like my my brand of advice is kind of, it comes from a weird place, I think, because I've always been like even starting out in the beginning of my career, like when I was 18 or something, when I was like first playing shows outside of the area I lived in, and first like that I would say I was like 19 or 20 when I first like toured across the United States, right?
Yeah.
And so even at that time, I feel like one big differentiator for me was that most artists have this like understanding that like they're going to have to play for free to get their name out, and they're going to have to do this. And I don't know if I can swear on your stream or not.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, and I would just be like, fuck that. No, I'm not doing it. And and 9 times out of 10 they'd be like, well, then he's not playing, and then it'd be that'd be it. But I felt like 1 time out of 10 somebody would be like, oh, this guy knows his value, he's probably really good, we'll put him on right before the headliner, and we'll give him $200 or whatever it was. And I think a lot of that just like comes from coming from South Chicago. Like I was just like, I mean, I'm it's weird to say now, but like I am a bit of a hood rat. Like I'm just and so I think just having, and that comes off in my channel, like you mentioned earlier, like I have this causticness of the way I speak and address people on Twitter and things like that, because like a huge part of me doesn't give a fuck. And like I can't like take the bullshit. And so that, to an independent musician at the beginning, is really difficult, because I had a lot of friends and a lot of peers who had like relationships with record labels and distributors, who were like taking all of their income out of their pockets, but they were being like pushed really high, and they were they were being marketed really, really well, and I was always sort of placed beneath them in the weird pecking order of who's the most popular artist this year in this tiny genre or something. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I was always making more than they were, and I was always like coming home with more money, and this continued into the Spotify world, where then all of a sudden everything, I had amassed all these albums, and I didn't do much press at the time, and I didn't do much stuff, but yet I was making way more off Spotify than like other people were. And I think again, it was just like I don't take shitty deals, like I just don't, and I don't have loss aversion to them. I don't say like, oh no, like South by Southwest is a great example. Like I don't understand how anybody could play that. I got offered to play Coachella for 400. I got offered a gig. It was like on the table. Like either right before Bjork one year or like year before, and it was like at a point in my career where I was like, where that was really appealing. And they didn't offer enough to even cover my flight there and back, and I was like, no, and they're like, excuse me, and it was like, no, like that's like your Coachella, dude, like give me $1,000, like
even like $1,000 would seem kind of weak for like freaking Coachella,
Oh yeah,
it's
sure,
like a gigantic,
it's gotten me there and back, right? But they were just like, no, we'll give you free tickets to your own show, and here's like $200, and we'll also
I bet you 99% of any artist who was offered that would do it. They would pay $400 to them to do it.
Absolutely. And my girlfriend at the time was just like, you're out of your mind. Like you just turned down the offer of a lifetime. It's like, but think about it. They want me to play on a Friday night before Bjork at a festival where people aren't coming home until Sunday night or Monday morning. Nobody's going to remember who I am. People aren't going to be like writing down on a tablet. Like, I mean, maybe there might be like a small subset of people, but no, everybody's going to be fucked up and all they care about is Bjork. That's why they're there. So like,
yeah, I mean, I can see why people I can see your perspective, but I can also see the people who would do its perspective. You know, it is essentially like if you're smaller than the artist you're opening for, it is like free marketing that you're getting paid very badly to get, but at least it's free marketing. But then the other side of it is like, you know for a fact they're taking advantage of you. Like when you agree to that, you're agreeing to be taken advantage of in exchange for, you know, I guess promotion in a way. But
yeah, and I guess in a weird way it was like, because I mean that's happened with a lot of opening things where I've just been like, no, I'm not gonna like take a huge pay cut just because it's like in front of a big act. I that precedent just doesn't resolve with me. But then when I have opened for so if you like were to go over like a big ledger of like all of my live performances, you'd see me headlining way sooner than I should have been, simply because I didn't want to open for other people at the pay they were giving me. But when I did tour with other artists that were, especially ones that were a lot bigger than me, Dillinger Escape Plan is a great example.
Oh, really? Oh, I love Dillinger Escape Plan.
Yeah, I toured with them for a while. I'm still good friends with Ben Weinman and
oh, wow.
Greg. Yeah,
that must have been a weird concert. I mean, because they're like mathcore,
right? Yeah. So I was a little freaking out, but they paid me totally fairly. They you know, Ben Weinman was just like, no, I love your stuff. We want you on the tour. It's going to be weird. We're going to make it work. We support you 100%. Then, oh God, what was it? Clear Channel had something to do with the tour. They had something to do with like how much money I was being paid, and they weren't giving me as much as I initially was like offered or something. And it was kind of out of everybody's hands in Dillinger. And they went on Headbangers Ball and just like name dropped me a bunch. And then like Clear Channel had to be like, all right, fine, we'll pay him what he was initially, you know, like that's how cool they were. And it was because Ben literally or legitimately really liked my music and wanted me there. And so therefore that got me a lot of fans, because I was like a legitimate part of this big tour where, you know, Dillinger fans are very open-minded, you know, that type of music. You know,
I mean, if you think of that EP they did with Mike Patton from Faith No More, I don't know if you know that. It's like,
oh yeah, sure.
They're a weird band, and so I guess I can see why, you know, their tour would be like. I mean, like I would never think you'd be touring with a metal act, but I mean, it's Dillinger, so I guess anything's on the table.
Yeah, and I thought, you know, I wasn't that familiar with. I think I'd never been further from metal in my life in any, you know, like at that time, like I was just like very embedded in electronic stuff, and and I wasn't even doing as many like jazz trio gigs in Chicago at the time. And so I was terrified because I imagined like Pantera type of environment, like people just like, you know, moshing and throwing crap at me on stage because I was playing something electronic. And it wasn't that at all. I mean, I got so much love from that tour and I gained so many fans from that tour, but better than that, I think, was that I to this day, I think Dillinger live, like I remember the first night of that tour, I was up on the side of the stage watching them play, going like, what is this going to be like? And afterwards I was like, oh my God, like and I thought they were improvising, and I thought that maybe I was hearing a weird echo or something. And then I listened to their music on like my MP3 player in the tour bus, and like listened to a little bit more of their music. And then the next night, you know, sat, you know, on the side of the stage for their show, and I was like, they're playing this all verbatim.
Yeah,
like this is insane. Like this is like this is like like metal's version of a prodigy, you know, or of like a musical genius. Like this is absolutely crazy that they can remember these time signature changes and all these things and just play everything verbatim. And to this day, and their energy on I don't know if you've ever seen them play live, but
I saw them at Warped Tour like forever ago.
And their energy is just,
they like break ribs like regularly from their crazy shows. Like you'll see these like they'll have these images of like someone getting like the skin in their arm ripped off because they like the guitarist slashed them with their guitar by accident.
Oh yeah.
At least it's always the band. It's never like the fans that get hurt. They're just like nuts on stage.
Yeah. The energy on stage the entire time And the whole thing, you know, is a wrap up. Like somehow, you know, I probably watched 80% of the shows that they played on the entire tour, and every single one of them felt like it ended too soon. You know, it was just
Yeah.
this amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
usually the type of person who's bored at live shows. I'm usually like, oh, how many more songs do they got before I could, you know, do something.
Yeah. That's
But
kind of
yeah,
how I am when I go to I don't really go to concerts much because I normally want to go and just watch the
yeah,
music. I never like the whole let's jump around and scream the songs as loud as we can and push people,
no,
and I
yeah,
mean, just most of the concerts I go to are metal, so everyone's like shoving each other, and like I just want to like watch the guy play the thing on the guitar that I like. It's like, um, but
yeah.
maybe I'm just boring.
No, that's sort of where I was heading with things, or where I was trying to head with things, as I was like, but you know, before COVID, I was trying to push for more seated gigs,
Yeah,
and for more, because one issue that I really had with live performing that was really making it exhausting for me was that if I played in a bar or a club that was like kind of a bar club, in America especially, people are very talkative, and that's fine. You know, like that's how people, they go out and they talk to their friends and they talk over the music.
yeah,
Um, totally used to it, not insulted by it in any way, but I can't play anything quiet. Like I have to stay at a pretty loud volume. If I'm playing at a festival, I'm dealing with bleed from other stages.
yeah,
And so I can only play bangers the entire time. And that's just not what my music is. And my best sets
yeah,
are when there can be a seated, quiet audience and I can be quiet with one instrument and then evolve it into something else. And that's when my sets are unique in what I'm playing, as in like I'm improvising everything with loopers and stuff, and then, you know,
yeah,
that will never be performed or heard again. And that's a much more special thing for me and for the audience. And so I was like, how can we foster that and kind of maybe even prioritize money a little bit lower for the experience to be higher, because I think that that'll pay off well the following year. And you know,
yeah.
and then of course, like, you know, 2020 was a horror movie and no shows happened, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's essentially, like you built up your following over the years just by, you know, playing shows, yeah, and taking opportunities, but only taking ones that made sense to take. On like you wouldn't take a deal just to get promotion, but you did just kind of play shows and release music, and
Yeah,
everything just happened organically. Like you didn't like.
yeah,
I mean, you were signed to a label at one point, right?
yeah, yeah, there was the last label that I was on, like that was actually like releasing full albums of mine, was Sublight, and they went under.
It's an
And
awkward
then
situation to be in.
yeah, but you know, that was like right at the height of me doing music for ads, and I had
Ah,
enough money to buy my licenses, and I even bought some other licenses from other artists on the label, and then just gave it to them and said,
oh,
take that, you know, like that
that's
way it
nice.
wouldn't be
Yeah,
like wrapped up in some weirdness. Um, yeah, and I just released something on my own label, and the only reason I had a label was like just so I could control my own publishing and stuff like that and get both sides of like
yeah,
the publishing. And so it was a nonprofit label, like it wasn't
hmm.
basically. And after that I kind of helped for a while. I helped artists with manufacturing. Like I had some, you know, contracts with like manufacturers and stuff where you could get CDs made cheaper and things like that. And so I would basically just almost hold independent artists' hands to like get off the teat of a record label and a
Yeah,
distributor, because they don't need it. And that's all there is to it, is like, you know, once after
yeah,
2010, labels just became completely, almost completely like irrelevant unless you are only catering to like eh, genres where people shop labels and see all the artists that are on the labels, right?
yeah.
And so, which now is like a Spotify playlist, essentially, is what that's turning into.
Yeah, there's a lot of online labels that they're literally just like they have a bunch of playlists and they'll
Yeah.
sign artists on a one-off basis. On like,
Hmm.
we'll sign you for this single or a couple singles, and the only thing the label does is put them on the playlist and take 50%.
Yeah, Mellotron is a company that does that. Uh,
There's a lot of them now.
I
It's-
just fucking lit them up too, because they, I had, no, I one song I gave that, they wanted an album, and they offered decent money for it, but I was just like, no, like I'm not giving my help. But they licensed one song off of my SoundCloud, where they're like, can we put this on Spotify? And I was like, sure, okay. For like an upfront amount of money for like a 2-year contract or something. And the contract is only for Spotify. Sure enough, this last video, I get dinged for using the song on the Spotify copyright management system or whatever.
Yeah.
By them, and they don't have the right to do that, you know. And I'm just like, yeah, and I just like lost it. It was like 3 a.m. I'm just like, I want to go to bed. I'm so angry that I have to deal with this right now. Like this video could be released right now, but you know, I have to wait now.
Yeah.
It was just, but
Oh,
they've
damn.
resolved it. So yeah, yelling on Twitter gets companies involved very fast in problems that would otherwise take months.
Even like when you have no one on Twitter, like one time Delta, the airline, me and my girlfriend bought tickets to Disney, and like for some reason on the way back they just put us in separate aisles. And,
Yeah.
like so we weren't sitting next to each other, and we were like, we bought these tickets 4 months ago. Like the plane wasn't full. Like, oh, we don't like let people pick their seats, and we're like, but we bought them together, and they wouldn't budge.
Yeah.
So I literally just tweeted at Delta something super sassy, like, thanks Delta for like making me and my girlfriend sit apart on the plane, even though we booked the tickets 4 months ago. And then I got a DM from like a customer service person, and they fixed it.
Wow.
Like, and
a lot of times I get the DM, but it never actually like translates to
they like actually went into the thing, and they like adjusted our seats, and you know, this was only an hour before the flight. I sent this tweet out, and they like fixed it, and I was amazed. And like, I don't have a big Twitter following now, but then I think I had 43 Twitter followers. And they still cared that much about their public perception, that publicly shaming a company.
It's interesting. Yeah, I've never, I don't think I've ever done it with an airline. A couple of years ago, I did run it. I was booking flights for other people, and I did run into an issue where I got basically like, I bought a one-way flight, or I bought a two-way flight, and I only used one way, but then they essentially were like, no, now you have to pay you have to pay like a surcharge over this, and it ended up being like $1,000 and something else. It ended up being this like massive amount of money, and I just sued them. Like I was just like, I'm going to sue you, and they're like, okay, sir, and I was like, okay, and then I went to like the magistrate court here in Marietta and filed a suit, and they immediately were like, here you go.
That's such a baller move. Like I can't imagine. I can't believe you actually did that in a work.
$70. You just go to the courthouse, and unless it's like over, I think what's the limit, $1,000 something. Yeah, for a company, like, I don't understand why people just don't sue the hell out of companies all the time. Like
they sue the hell out of each other all the time. So
like I always do. Like I've gotten to the point where I've been like, where I've threatened it, and I've been like, on Monday I'm going down to the county magistrate court, and I'm filing suit. Do you understand? And then, you know, eventually it gets like resolved Sunday night. But yeah, I did that with the gym. I did that like all sorts of like.
So spoiler alert to anyone who interacts with Benn: don't piss him off.
Yeah, well, obviously if it's like a copyright infringement thing, it's a much more expensive and time-consuming thing. But like when it comes down to like an airline overcharging you, or like
or like if your cell phone company or cable company's ripping you off, a lot of people just roll over and take it because they don't think they can do anything. So I mean, you're not wrong. It's just funny that.
Yeah, small claims court's incredible. It's such a good thing, and a lot of countries don't have it. Like it's I'm not sure if Canada does. I think England does. They have like a weird version of it, but yeah, it's like, it's an American privilege to like go to a court where lawyers aren't allowed, where like they just look at paperwork and then deem, you know, one person right and one person wrong. It's like our own like Judge Judy.
Yeah. Oh man. That's the funniest thing I've heard in one of these live streams, I think.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is like, you know, Delta Airlines or whoever it is, T-Mobile or, you know, whoever, how much would it cost them to fly somebody to represent the company in court? You know? And so they're just like, just here. Yeah, it's going to be cheaper than dealing with this. So,
so before we talked about that, I remember what I was So that's kind of how you forged your musical journey. Obviously, times have changed, you know, over the years, and how people get started. And if someone, 19 years old comes to you and they're like, hey, I make great music and I want people to hear my music. How can I go about getting more people to hear my music? What would you tell them to do?
So I think there's two different types of people who ask that question, and I think
Yeah.
one of them uh, is very interested in just it sounds bad to say because this is a very fair thing to be interested in attention
Yeah.
and money and and like all of the things that come with or I guess all of the things that stereotypically come with being a professional musician.
Yeah.
And then there's a person who just really loves making music, and no matter what the circumstances are, as long as they're making music, they're happy. At
Yeah.
least that's what they think. And the first person, my advice is almost always like you need to just get into something else, and and
Yeah.
DJ as your side gig. Like there's no jumping into music professionally as a strategy to make money or to be famous is a very bad gamble. Like it's just
Yeah.
not a good thing. Jumping into music because you love making music is an obvious choice that there is very few reasons why you should not do that. And so like that's like the first step is like why do you want to be a
Yeah.
musician?
I there's a lot of those people in that kind of category one, and
Yeah.
I don't think they realize that if they're looking for like a get famous or get rich quick scheme, they probably couldn't pick a worse industry to do it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, really.
Music, like as you mentioned before, like when budget gets cut in like marketing, the
Yeah.
first thing to get cut is music. When the budget gets cut in a film, probably the first thing to go is music.
Yeah.
When labels start making less money, the first people to get shafted are the artists, not the managers of the
Yeah.
label.
Yeah, and I don't even know where I would tell them like where's the easiest way to get famous, but I assume I mean
Probably like TikTok now.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
do
really
memes
like
or something. Yeah.
yeah, like Twitch streaming, like things like that. That's you can move a lot faster than you can. Yeah, I mean, in terms of just like gaining followers, it's a lot quicker than
Yeah.
being a musician, being like listen to my music that I've just started on my journey to make. Like nobody wants to hear it, and so
Yeah.
that's the issue. But yeah, on that other end, I don't necessarily want to say that like everybody should do things the way I did. Like I don't have like the Ben Jordan method of like telling everybody to fuck off if they don't offer you enough money.
Yeah.
I don't think that works for everyone, but I do think that like consistency is really important, and in consistency and just always being like if a show doesn't work out or if an album doesn't work out or if nobody listens to if you make an album and you push it and you work really hard and nobody listens to it except for your mom, then that's okay because you made an album and you liked making an album. Otherwise, why else would you make an album? Like, so that's kind of okay. And when you think about the financial side of it, um the landscape's going to change. I mean, in my career, the landscape's changed probably 4 times completely, like complete
Yeah.
decimated one landscape, new one, like it just
When you
4
got
times.
started, like professionally, I mean, iTunes wasn't a thing yet, right?
No, no, yeah. So I got started. I had albums out before Napster, so like
Yeah.
MP3 players were like not even out yet. It was like this thing, and yeah, you had a CD, and that was the only way you could really listen to music. There were like some really dorky people like trading MP3s on news groups and stuff, but I mean, we were talking like, they also had like a ham radio in the room and stuff. So, there, yeah. So once Napster came around, and once iTunes, I got really freaked out because iTunes, when it began, it was curated by Apple,
Yeah.
and it curated generally my entire life meant I'm not part of it. I'm not part of the thing because I made weird music that like,
Yeah.
it's curation's not necessarily. I'm just not a big fan of curation in any art form. I think that it's pretty restrictive.
It makes sense for like pop music and hip hop, I guess, because it's
Maybe,
like the
yeah.
people who are into that, they're looking for like whatever the best tracks are. They don't care about the artist; they just want to hear a bunch of singles.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
mean, in like metal and electronic, the non-poppy electronic music, or like anything other than the norm, I feel like it's just kind of
Sure.
silly, you know, to
Yeah.
gatekeep. When the whole point of a genre is to be kind of like diverse and unique and
Yeah.
expressive, curation just kind of kills that whole point.
And it comes down to like a critique of like who's curating it too, you know, which is
Yeah,
always and you know, Apple Incorporated is curating, like
yeah,
who could be more in touch with like, yeah. So um but then they ended up kind of opening the floodgates, and then it kind of became like the TuneCore CD baby, get pay to get your music on iTunes standard, which is absurd. And like, if
yeah.
I were king of the USA, I would make that illegal. Like that would be like, I'm sorry, if you want to have a music streaming service, like you should be required by law to manage your own uploads. Like that's, you know, that's kind of a like, you know, be like
Yeah,
good.
it does
Yeah,
seem kind of messed up that like it would almost be like, you know, on YouTube right now you upload your own videos, you monetize it yourself, and you get the money yourself. Imagine if like all of a sudden they said we're not going to let creators upload videos anymore. You're going to have to
yeah,
go through like TuneCore and pay them
yeah,
to upload every video. Like
yeah.
that's what music distributors do, and
And
it's
it's a fuck ton of money. Like
yeah.
it adds up. Like if you look at my discography and the amount of time that I've renewed albums on TuneCore and stuff like that, you're
TuneCore is the
getting,
worst too. Like in terms of
yeah,
cost, it's
it goes
crazy.
into the ten thousands of dollars. Like it's a lot of money. And so that the only benefit to that that I think is it's interesting, and I don't know how in an ideal world that I would fix this, but the only benefit for that is that it does add a tiny bit of like risk for somebody to
Yeah,
upload something, so they at least like will only upload things that they believe in, otherwise they're just throwing money into the garbage, like they, so that way
yeah,
you just don't have, I mean, because Spotify's already flooded with nonsense.
yeah,
um
yeah.
and so
It's kind of like SoundCloud. It's there's a lot
yeah,
more trash in SoundCloud than there is on
yeah,
Spotify
yeah,
generally.
right, yeah, and copyright infringement and all sorts of things like that. And so
Yeah,
I do think that that's kind of, it reminds me like way back in the day, like when email spam first became a problem. The federal government had talked about a email tax, and everybody was like, tax, I don't want to hear anything else. And it was like, no, 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 it's like a fraction of a cent, but if you want to send a billion messages, it's going to cost you $100 million. For
hmm.
every American, it's going to cost them like $3 a year to send emails. But
Yeah,
you know, it will basically make spam illegal unless
hmm.
people want to, you know, pay a buttload for it. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. I mean, now companies, I guess, pay for autoresponders anyways. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a, you probably have a mailing list, right? Just like every other
No, not
artist in the
anymore.
world. Oh,
I have
really?
one, but I don't use it. No.
Oh, well,
But
I mean, so you know how they work though. You know, you
yeah,
essentially
yeah.
pay for X amount of monthly messages, or you pay per like subscriber, or you
Hmm.
know, that's
Yeah,
usually how they
I
work.
think the last one I just like imported it to Mailchimp. Yeah, Mailchimp. I'm trying.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think the only reason I even remember the name is because it's an Atlanta company. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, I've stopped with the email completely. I don't know. I feel like nobody. I very rarely ever click an email that is a promotional or anything, unless, I mean, it has to be like an item on your Steam wish list is 99% off. You know, it has to be like something where I'm like, well, okay, I'm in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's. I guess it's really only for this certain type of person, and it really
Yeah.
depends what you're doing. I mean, I don't know if you're subscribed to Brian Hazard's, is the color theory guy from PassivePromotion.com. You might have
No,
never
no.
heard of him, but he has a really good blog where he literally kind of does what I do on the channel, where he tries some music marketing thing and then just reports on it in
Hmm.
like a big blog article.
Yeah.
He does an email list where he sends everything every month or so. It's like how I'm promoting my music this month, and he like breaks down exactly what
Hmm.
he's doing. And the second I get that email, I'm like opening it, reading it, going to his blog, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's I guess kind of where email marketing. I mean, he's not even selling anything either, but
Yeah.
you know, it's there's a balance. I get a lot of emails from artists who are like, "Yo, go check out my new song," and it's just I'm kind of like unsubscribe immediately. You know, like what the hell?
Yeah, right.
This is giving me no value whatsoever. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you get my email.
Yeah.
If I get it from someone I listen to, even then I might not even click on it because I probably already know they came out with the song. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think like the bulk of your music, I guess music slash YouTube living, is that made from like the courses that you sell essentially? Or
Yeah. So the most of what I make through like online stuff, it's a combination of consultations and course sales.
okay,
And then there's YouTube ad revenue, and then
sure.
there's other things as well, sample packs, blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Yeah, I've been like wondering a bit lately. I found out that like some of my material, my YouTube material, shockingly, like I've heard this more times than I would ever believe, that some of my YouTube material is being used as like in college courses. It's like, like
Yeah,
watch this, you have to watch this as your homework, or something like that.
yeah.
Um
I mean,
and
you do have some really good tutorial videos on
yeah,
your
some of it's
channel,
like,
and
yeah, some of it actually gets pretty dry, right? And like actually gets like down into the weeds and
well,
stuff.
that's why it's good though, because like you keep it like interesting. I think
Yeah, I try to.
it
Yes.
doesn't feel like I'm watching like some boring like tutorial. It's like you drop some jokes in there, and you
Yeah.
keep it entertaining enough.
Part of that, well, I'll go back to that in a second, but and I've wondered how I felt about that, because like I didn't go to college, right? And I
Yeah.
dropped out of high school. And so I'm
Hmm.
like, huh, like now this, all of a sudden now this industry, this college, this education industry is very, very interested in me and happy with me. But when it was like scholarship time,
It's like
when
look
I
how the
needed,
tables have turned. People are learning
yeah,
from you in colleges, and you didn't even
yeah,
you
but
got
no,
dropped out of high
I
school.
do work with some college, like next a week from Monday, like
Yeah.
I'm teaching a it's like a temporary class at a college in Sweden, that things
Oh,
like
cool.
that
Yeah.
are cool. But yeah, actually going back to what I was saying about sorry, what was I gonna go back to a minute ago? We were talking
We
about something.
talked about the email stuff. You asked me about the courses that I sell, and then you mentioned
Yeah, the colleges.
that.
Yeah, I forgot. Oh well. Wish I could rewind our own stream and be like, oh, whoa, where did I?
Yeah. Well, on a side note, oh man, now I just forget what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, yeah. So, how do you feel about people who want to go to college for music, like to Berkeley or to Full Sail?
Um,
God forbid, Full Sail.
I have a friend who lives in London, who is part of I guess part of like a jazz scene there, and she's like a sax player, and
Yeah.
she was part of the jazz scene there, and she's like a good friend of mine, and she's been one of the people who kind of I would bounce ideas off of when I did my sexism in music video.
Oh yeah.
And she was a big spark for that, because like she had experiences that she wasn't in the video, but she had experiences that like actually made me dive deeper into certain avenues and stuff like that to figure it out.
Yeah.
And she mentioned that there's like a lot of she posted a meme on like a private Instagram story that was basically a repost of somebody complaining of a female in England, jazz, who's involved in jazz, and somebody complaining about how nobody will explain modes or scales to them or things like that, and it's sort of like a boys club where these rich straight white men are the ones who have this knowledge, and they like gatekeep
Mm.
everybody else from it. And I was like, hey, I got a opinion on this, like coming from South Chicago, like I was the only white person in that jazz scene down, like I grew up in a very, very, like, white people were a minority where I grew up, right? They still
Yeah.
are where I live now. And
Yeah.
like, and so I'm like, this is really interesting, because I never really thought about this. Like, yeah, Berkeley is very its own jazz scene that exists all on its own. It's white people playing jazz, where it's like it comes. And so, not to like get to, this isn't like a woke thing, or this isn't like a racial it's not even so much a racial thing as it is a cultural thing. And so
Yeah.
like there's like this like expensive highbrow white jazz, and then there's like the traditional you know Coltrane, Herbie Hancock jazz.
Yeah.
So So I'm not. It's weird because I used to think like, yeah, like Berkeley, that's a good school to learn jazz, I suppose. And, but at the same time, it's like, are you though? Because like, you know, like,
Well, a lot of people that go there, they're not going, they're going for there for whatever instrument they choose, and I think a lot of people have this vision that if they go there, they'll meet the right people, they'll meet serious musicians they can collaborate with, and then
yeah,
other people go for audio engineering and other niches and stuff. But
sure.
um, it's kind of I've never talked to anyone that's like really felt like they used anything they learned there. you know?
Yeah. So I mean, let's say you go to Berkeley, and let's say you go to Berkeley, you don't want to get involved in music education. You don't want to teach at Berkeley, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
teach at your community college or anywhere. You want to work in you want to be a jazz musician or a whatever musician. And you go to Berkeley and you come out on top of your class. Uh, well, where are you going to go? Like what scene are you going to now enter and dominate in? Because there isn't one. Like what?
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna. Oh yeah, now you're gonna all of a sudden join the vibrant jazz scene happening in 2021 in America. No, like it's not a thing, and so there's no money to
Yeah.
be made by the people who are already established in it. Uh, and as long as that's a realization when you go in, then fine. But like people watch the movie Whiplash, and they think that like the big successful show at the are you familiar with that? Have you seen
No,
that?
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's a jazz drumming kid who like has
Uh,
like this asshole teacher, and yeah, but it's a recent movie. It's a really good movie. You should watch it, by the way. It's awesome. But
yeah. I'll check it out.
I think a lot of people are like, he's just trying to make it, and it's like, no, though, there's nowhere to make it. Like you're going to be playing like, cultural centers and
Yeah.
stuff like that's like who books these shows. There's very, very few grimy jazz clubs left in the country, unfortunately. But yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and like I guess if you wanted to be, like a rock guitarist or something, or like a crazy talented electronic musician, it's like they don't even teach that at those schools. I mean, there are schools that'll teach you
Yeah.
music production in a modern sense. Like I forget what it's called. A friend of mine teaches at it. It's in California, but they teach like Ableton Live and music production to make like bass music, and he's like my friend there who teaches has like taught people who then become successful EDM artists.
Yeah.
But even that, I would like say like I don't know. It's there's nothing in music I feel like that you can't just go do yourself. Per se.
Yeah, like Mr. Bill has a pretty successful Ableton class, Ableton workshop thing, and I mean I'm close enough to. He's like a pretty straightforward person, and I'm friends. I'm close enough friends with him to where I feel like he would have told me if people were very unhappy with it or something. And he seems to have like just a bunch of really happy, inspired students.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, I've never taken the course, and so I can't really personally endorse it other than saying that like Bill's a good guy, and
Yeah.
and he's probably, and people seem to like it. Yeah, but so it's, I guess I just can't say that everybody is the same in terms of how they learn, because there are people like I just learn really good by burying myself in something, usually by myself, which right now I'm struggling with. Like I was just actually hitting up some Unity developers because I wanted to learn how to like do some game audio functions and stuff, and usually that's something I would just Google and bury my head in sand and just come out a week later and know it. But
Yeah.
I was like, no, I think I need to like pay somebody to
Yeah.
share a screen with me and do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, that's. Do you do like any kind of development stuff on the side, or like you just done it for fun, or is this a completely brand new interest for you getting into? Like,
Oh no,
software?
I've done some game music before, and just
Okay.
things. Yeah, I've done jobs, and things evolve.
Yeah.
And so things evolve so fast that like all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're using this entire new system now. And also, I mean, I kind of like I jump from thing to thing, and so a lot of times I literally feel like knowledge leaks out of my ear when new stuff comes in, you know. It's like
Yeah.
yeah, I used to know how to, you know, execute this Python script that would do this, and I could do that really good, and then I learned about gators for the last video. And you know,
Now your
now
head's
I know,
all full of gators.
yeah, now I know gators and like
Yeah, I used to know how to script contact libraries because
oh
I
yeah.
made contact libraries for my web store and haven't done it in a year, so could not
How do I
do
not? What is that language?
KSP,
Yeah, KSP.
contact
Do you have the
scripting.
book? Do you have the book with like the weird half naked girl on the front?
No,
The KSP reference library?
I,
Yeah.
I have the one from Native Instruments. That's just like the
Oh,
standard
okay,
like
yeah. Yeah,
manual.
there's a super rare book that I have that it has this girl just this like sexy young girl on a bed with a laptop, and it's just like the cover of the book. And it's funny because I've had it out when I was like actually paying attention to like KSP and using Contact a lot more.
Yeah.
Um, I always had it out, and people are always like, "What are you reading? Like, reading like a erotic novel at your desk?"
It's actually like the nerdiest music thing in the world.
Yeah, literally, it was like the most like, yeah, like nobody would ever. But I think
Yeah.
I think that was for Contact 3, so it's probably
Yeah, I learned
a
in
little.
Contact 5, so it's a
Yeah.
little different.
I don't know. I actually don't know if KSP has really.
They
Uh,
add even Contact 6 added like wavetables, and they added
yeah,
like a wavetable function, like a set of like wavetables
yeah.
commands. But aside from that, it was exactly the same. I bet you it's this bit almost identical since Contact 3.
I've moved on to like I've sort of tried to like be moving things to Falcon, to UVI
Yeah,
Falcon, and that has Lua scripting, which is like ages, you know, like just so much better in term or so much more efficient and just not even
yeah,
efficient. What's the word I want to use? Just easier to learn, like just easier
yeah,
to like get from to write a generative sequencer. You know, would take like a few hours, whereas I feel in Contact it would take a very long time. But
yeah. Oh, that's cool. Didn't know you did that stuff. So try to switch gears. YouTube,
yeah,
completely
yeah,
different thing.
right.
You have like 70,000 followers on YouTube,
Hmm.
and you talk about a very diverse set of topics. Everything from like synth and gear tutorials to why aren't there any female producers, or why are there so few female producers, to
Yeah,
bashing NFTs, and
yeah.
everything in between. So like, did you have the same approach to your YouTube growth as you did your music? Kind of just I'm gonna do what I want, and kind of
Yeah.
just push it out, or was there like a solid plan that you did for
I
it?
think so. And you know, it's funny because I feel like there's parallels that that exist that are funny in a lot of ways. Like for example, with music, one thing I would notice is I would write an album, and there'd be like one song where it wouldn't be like a piss take, but it would be something that I made in like a day. You know, like had it mastered by the end of the night, or maybe 2 days max. And then there'd be another song that I literally spent a month on and hired an orchestra for, and like all these other things. And the writing in that orchestra song is, you know, in my opinion, way superior, and I put so much time into it. And when you look at like the metrics of what songs people like the most, the one that I put no effort into is number one, and the one that I put the most effort in, I think that's
Yeah.
actually on Spotify now. I think my number one Spotify track is like probably the worst piano track I've ever written in my life. Like
Is
it's
it
just
watching traffic
yeah,
or
yeah, like that
undiscovered
track
color?
is pure shit. Like that like I'm so embarrassed that, you know, like I was like, what was I thinking when I made that? And now it's like number one.
Yeah,
Um yeah,
that's funny.
yeah. Like and so that carried over into YouTube beautifully. Like that same thing where like my number one video, I think up until recently, my number one video was just me opening VCV Rack for the first time and like doing a screen recording of it and a couple slight edits. I literally made the video, and it's shortest I've ever spent on a video. And then,
Yeah.
you know, if you dig deep into like the videos that only have like, you know, 5,000 views or something like that, it's me levitating things with audio. And like
Yeah.
somehow that's not interesting though, you know. Somehow
Yeah.
me opening VCV Rack is way, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've had that happen. I feel like it's just kind of how life works sometimes. You know, like my two most successful songs on Spotify were
Yeah.
probably the two I spent, I wouldn't say the least amount of time on, but like two of the, I guess, easier songs to fall out. Like they were some of the more quickly ones that were ever done.
Sure.
And then the
Yeah.
ones that I put the most work in and was the most confident would be the best, end up being the worst.
Yeah.
It's
And
almost
maybe
in
it's
every
because,
case too.
yeah, it's like maybe there's actually some sort of rhyme or reason to that. Like maybe the things that just appeal to us very quickly, to where we're like, yeah, okay, this is a wrap up, and then the other stuff where we kind of, we dig our
Yeah.
own hole, and like you can't really expect everybody to like follow you into those places, and so,
Yeah.
but with YouTube, I think I was like, I'm gonna cross over into science a little bit, and I'm gonna like get out of the audio review zone, and and do that. And that was like kind of the plan from the beginning. Is like, I'm gonna learn with the reviews, and then I'm gonna kind of slowly, break out of that shell,
Hmm.
because I do feel like the audio review YouTube is already covered, and and I don't think I can do
Yeah.
a better job than Lou Pop. I think there's
Yeah.
people who there's people who are just brilliant and they do it perfectly, and
Yeah.
there's like, if somebody's sending me a product and I'm going to Lou Pop's video on it that he made a week ago and then learning about it that way, like, then they shouldn't be sending it to me. They should be like, then you
Yeah,
should.
yeah. I mean, his videos are like insanely detailed and
Yeah, yeah,
like
he's
they're
so good at what
incredibly
he does.
clear and there's a million. I don't want to say clones of him, but there's a million people doing content around the same pieces of gear.
Yeah.
So it is kind of saturated in a way.
Yeah, it's funny because I've told, like, his name's Ziv, and like I've told him, I met with him at NAM and in 2020, and I told him,
That
like,
was my first and only name.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's I met with him and I told him, like, since then I told him, like, I really like being able to make the more artsy and personal gear things because you do this already. Like, I have no problem pointing to your channel being like, if you want to learn more about the menu diving, then like
Yeah.
he does it better than I do, and I'll just try and use it in my own way. um but anyway, yeah, I wanted my channel to kind of break out of that, and
Yeah.
same with the music. It's like, I feel like the videos I put the most effort into, I feel like they get the most praise out of in terms of, like, the comments are all like, wow, but then the viewership and everything else is below, something that is mediocre. And so, I don't
Yeah.
know how to I don't know how to get around that. I've thought about leaving YouTube altogether as part of
Oh.
that, like, in terms of, like,
Yeah.
pitching series to pay networks, but I've kind of
Hmm.
decided to hold off on that for a while, for at least a year, before doing any more, before meeting with any more, like, networks. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna, like, name the exact name, but like Hulu is an example of like a network that
Hmm.
would pick up a series and give it a budget. um so yeah, I guess I'm just sort of feeling things out right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I feel differently all the time. Like, right now, the last thing I want to do is like make a big video thing that takes 2 weeks just because I just finished one, right? And so, but
Yeah. Yeah.
in a week I'll be like, all right, let's go record sound in a cave, or whatever it is. So yeah.
Yeah, because you don't really follow. I mean, like I try to upload videos twice a week. Recently, it's been once a week just because I'm busy.
Yeah.
And last year I did twice a week. The year before that I did it twice a week. Year before that I did once a week. Year before that once a week. And you don't really do that. You kind of just. It seems like you kind of just make a video and release it, and then eventually you feel like it and release another video. Or is that a wrong impression? Do you have kind of like a schedule?
In 2020, I stayed pretty close to once a week,
Okay.
at least from like February onward. Like, I finished an album and then went hard YouTube. And once my Patreon started, that was like part of me telling my patrons, is like, this frees me from being a slave to the algorithm, essentially. Like, this way,
Yeah.
you'll be replacing ad money, and now I can spend more time on a video that's meaningful to me, and
Yeah.
that's worked out great. I think that's like a really good thing. And I don't even know what slave to the algorithm means anymore, because I'm not sure that YouTube really does. Like, I feel like a lot of people think that YouTube prioritizes you if you upload once a week, over people who upload once every 2 weeks or something. But I think that they've changed that pretty drastically.
It seems to be that if someone is watching a lot of your videos, they'll get recommended more of your videos. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the whole algorithm. Like if someone watches in terms of watch hours more of your content than anything else, you'll get recommended your content more than anyone else's to that person. Yeah. And so I guess if they've consumed all your content and they haven't watched you for 2 weeks because you haven't put up a video in 2 weeks, I can see why that would hurt you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if YouTube has like what's the time delay you'd have to disappear for them to kind of reduce your ranking. Like, is it like a week? Or is it 2 weeks? Is it a month?
I don't want to know. I don't want to know the answer.
Do you even want to know?
No. Like, because that's just.
It's anxiety. It's like very anxiety inducing if you had that number.
I'm trying to like encompass what it would be like to hire an assistant. And that's where I'm at right now, because I think that I would. Yeah, I think that I would get a positive return on it in terms of like my time being spent a little bit better and less with, doing things like invoicing, or, whatever it is that's like taking.
Do you edit your own videos?
Yeah. And I feel like that's something I can't, at least right now, that's not something I'm willing to give to somebody else, because I feel like I'm very. Yeah, I mean it's almost like editing a song or something. It's like it's my video DAW session, and I just like race through it with my little like Blackmagic controller here. And
how is that thing, by the way? The Blackmagic controller. Is it worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. When they sent it to me, I thought it for some reason I thought it cost $1,000. Yeah, and it doesn't. It costs way less than that. I think it's what, 300 or something.
I don't know. I remember I looked at it at one point and I was like, I don't want to spend this much for like what's essentially like a dedicated.
It's being able to jog, and then just like hit a button and jog and hit a button and hit. I mean, it goes so fast. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to think about it.
100% recommend it. Yeah. You're talking about the speed editor, right?
They have a few systems, I know, but I think it was that jogging thing you're talking about. It's got like some buttons on it that you are mapped to your. So I mean, I use Premiere Pro.
This thing is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And so that I'm pretty sure you can use in any editing software, right?
Oh, I wonder if it works with Premiere. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it did, or there was a way to map it.
Do you have GPUs on your machine?
I'm using a Mac for my main machine, although I do have I built a PC that's like here. So I have a Mac and then a PC.
Oh, okay. Is it like a gaming PC? Do you have?
Yeah. So it has a decent GPU.
Have you tried Resolve on the gaming PC?
No, I've only tried it on the Mac.
I mean, it's like because I started with Premiere 2 and I went to Resolve, and I had GPUs for like deep learning stuff and rendering, and like Resolve just like automatically recognize them. And I mean, it's crazy. Like I'll have like a green screen layer with like a title sequence with like a bunch of like film grain effects and stuff like that, and I feel like in After Effects or Premiere that would have been like a very long. I would have had to like do a RAM preview, or something. And I could just like with in Resolve, like using the GPU, I could just be like back and forth, play it 5 times speed to like race through it faster and stuff. Yeah, it's
wow,
the real deal. Like I'm very, very impressed.
We'll have to check out DaVinci again then. Who knows?
Definitely.
Ben's gonna take me away from that Adobe train.
Well, I'm also like your videos look good. Like you have good, like it looks like you're spending time color grading and stuff. And so whenever I see a video that's like color graded well, I'm like, well, they're probably using Resolve, because like
I do it all in
like
that
standard for color grading. So it's like
the way I do it for at least the streams, actually the way I do it all the time now is I used to edit my videos in Premiere entirely, and I would output like a log format from my Canon into the editor, and then I would color grade it in there, and then I eventually saved a preset. And now I film all my videos in OBS. So I like right now in the Zoom call we're in, I look probably super muted and gray, and that's because in OBS I have a LUT that I copied from Premiere. Sure. And so the cool thing with OBS is like I don't really have to edit my videos much anymore. I kind of like I click record and I try to like mostly one take things, and I just cut out some chunks in the middle, and you can kind of almost perform video transitions and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I have I have the Blackmagic 6K, and you could load the LUTs on there, and you have like a LUT button, so you could like try
Yeah.
them out live to like see what you're. But obviously, like you can record raw in 6K, but
Yeah.
if you have like terabytes and terabytes to use. Oh,
Yeah.
another really good thing about that workflow, that where Blackmagic like really kind of like changed the game for me, is you just hook up a solid state drive to the camera, and then dump any other, like if I have like a Zoom recording audio somewhere else or something like that,
Yeah.
I will then just dump that onto the solid state drive and then plug it in the PC, and I have like my drive is now my editing drive, and everything stays there on this super fast little USB 3.2 drive, and then
Yeah.
when the video is done, I just save the render and any other thing I might need, and then clear the drive for the next video, and it's like super efficient. Yeah,
That's pretty sweet.
yeah, but it still takes forever. Still editing is.
I can imagine. I mean, and then you don't have any of the original assets, which I guess is probably a blessing and a downside every so often. I mean,
Yeah.
Every video I've made in the past 3 years, I have all the original files. Unlike I built a PC for like a home server.
Yeah.
And it's got like 15 terabytes on it now, and it could go up to like 70 or something. And it's,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have and that ended with the Blackmagic 6K. Like
when you get to 6K, that's
yeah, 6K raw. Like there are some videos I did where my SSD got full, and I had to like get another one, and I mean and my SSD is 2 terabytes, so it's like halfway through a video and I've already used 2 terabytes of data. It's a little over the top, but
it's nuts. My camera can do 4K, but I still just film in 1080 because
I still render to 1080. I don't bother with. I mean, I might if I had fiber, I just because it's all about the upload speed, and it's just like,
oh yeah,
for uploading a 50 gigabyte file is just like yeah, but it's no, that's a pretty cool workflow though, that you're doing it all through OBS. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's I used to have to like record the screen and my camera separately and the audio separately, but now it's all just baked into one file. So I don't have to like deal with like a sliding animation for the like a screen overlay and then have my face on the side and deal with like having multiple streams of video. It's just, I have a little controller where I just click if I want it to be full screen my face, or half screen my face and half screen, or like screen most of the screen and my face in the corner. And then you essentially just kind of perform the transitions.
Yeah.
And at the end, you just cut out all the bad takes you do. So I might start out a video and be like, in this video, I'm going to talk about how I get ran this, do whatever you're going to do. And then I might do that 4 times. And then the next thing I do, I know what I'm talking about, but I just improvise it and do it until I get a good take. And then all my editing process is cut out that chunk, cut out that chunk, cut out that chunk, cut out that chunk, and just smash it together.
You go to the last time you say the beginning of a sentence, and then
yeah, exactly, yeah. And it takes like, I can edit, essentially if I have an hour-long video like one of these. I mean, these take almost nothing, just because I take the whole thing essentially. But if let's say I had like a 20-minute video, it might take me less than 20 minutes to edit.
Oh wow, yeah, that's crazy.
As long as I don't, I do forget stuff though. That's kind of the downside, is because I don't often have to watch the whole video. I might forget to edit out something where I like awkwardly start a part over or something.
Oh yeah, I've done that. Yeah. I mean, editing things like the swamp video, obviously, because I probably had like 4 different cameras, 5 throughout the entire process of that. So it was like cameras, external recorders, all that stuff.
Do you have someone helping you for that?
No.
It's literally just you out in the swamp?
I got my parents a cabin near the swamp in a state park to watch my dog, and just in case something happened. That was almost, and it was like, I was just like, well, you guys would really enjoy this anyway. And so, but it's funny because I had them and the nearby state park on radio, and I radioed them when I got stuck, and nobody responded, and I was like, cheers. Awesome. So I cut that segment out of the video, but there's like a good like half hour where I'm just like trying to like get somebody on the radio to come tow my boat back to the
oh man,
area.
that's
but,
terrifying.
Well, I got it working, so it all worked out fine.
Yeah, man.
I have some rancid sunburn though. Like my God, I've never been sunburned before, and I
You've
got
never been
like
sunburned before?
yeah, and I got sun poisoning. Like
Wow.
um, yeah, I got it like really bad. I was sick from it too. So yeah,
Jeez. How the hell did you never get sunburned before?
I don't know. I mean, I've like been to the desert topless and all sorts
Yeah.
of things
Is
that would get
it
me sunburned.
if
But
you were like, I don't know, like super dark Italian or something, I'd say,
yeah,
but you look, relatively about as pale as me, I think. Maybe a little
yeah,
less
no,
pale than
I'm
me.
pretty. Yeah, I'm pretty. I don't know. I'm like olivey sort of, but yeah,
Yeah.
I have no idea. But I got it real bad this time. I was just, and it was funny because I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do you do with sunburn? I have no
Yeah.
idea. Like, just, I have
uh,
blisters and I don't know what to. But
yeah.
uh, yeah, it was an adventure. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, stuff like that's so cool though. You know, when I get done editing those videos, I'm like, man, this life is great. You know, like got to go hang out with gators and do all these exciting things. Like that's really fun.
Yeah.
Um, but of
That's
course, it's
cool. You can kind of just go and do these exploratory sound things, whenever I mean, like you do music full time, right?
yeah,
Like, or music related things full time.
yeah.
Um, and so you can you have the freedom to, I mean, just go to hang out at a swamp to record some cool sounds. That's like awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said much earlier, like I've been trying to like figure out a way how I can leave Georgia and do almost like what would be the best way to make three of those videos all in one big trip,
Yeah.
that one big 7,000 mile trip or something like that. Which I'm okay with because I've toured coast to coast, probably over
Yeah.
a dozen, well over a dozen times, and yeah, and so now it's just sort of like I probably need an assistant. Like I think I'm just working way too much, and like I just need, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's my next, at some
It's
point.
the next
Oh
adventure. So
yeah,
it just kind of like, I guess, a quick question, and then we'll go and just do some Q&A,
sure.
and call it a night. But last big question, I guess, is out of all your various income sources in music, like what's kind of leading the pack, and I guess just kind of mention other ways that you kind of are able to
Hmm.
monetize all your different things.
Music. Do you mean music alone, or are we counting the YouTube
I'd
thing?
say anything related to your music, whether like, so YouTube, I'd say, was related to music because you're talking about either music
Yeah.
gear or music industry kind of stuff.
Okay. Um, music for a while, it was actually Spotify. It
Oh,
didn't have to be Spotify. Like I could have also worked on more ads and worked on more things like that, and maybe beat Spotify. But
yeah,
I when Spotify was paying much higher than they are now, I literally was just like, well, I'll put more time into albums because it's paying well and things
yeah,
pay off in the long run, and so that was nice. Um, I would say like again like even mentioning even when ad composing was making me money and when it was like super lucrative, I still would never recommend it to people because I think a lot of people, at least in like between 2000 and 2010, I would go on tour, I would meet a lot of other recording artists, and they would always say something like, yeah, I thought about getting into ad composing, just make some quick money easy. And it was like, you have no idea how competitive like the industry, like if you think
yeah,
like touring is competitive, wait till you like enter the ad industry, and other artists who are legitimate have like two different PhDs in music and can like write any genre instantly and play 18 different instruments, and that's who you're competing with in that world. And so it
yeah,
seems like it's easy money, but it's not in terms of the actual competition. um so nowadays, it, as far as making money from music, I used to be 100% gung ho, like quit your day job, go crazy, be you know be nuts. And I don't think I'm like that anymore. Now I think it's like just always make time for music. Like if you could choose between two jobs and one of them you can make 100,000 a year and one of them you can make 50,000 a year but have time for music, then like you can still live very nicely on $50,000 a year and be
yeah,
happy because you're writing music. rather than, working at a job you don't want to. It becomes almost, more of a thing of like, what kind of life do you want to have? Do you want to be happy or
Yeah.
wealthy? But beyond that, I think that there's the big problem is how little most musicians or artists in general know about money and finance. And I say this as somebody who got like $100,000 check and put it into a checking account and left it there and like bought a lot of shoes. Like that's because I grew up in like a poor area and I just, the first time I got a big payout, the biggest payout I've ever gotten in my life all in one, time.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to spend it. And I got audited by the IRS. Like they thought I was dealing drugs because it was like a check from Canada. And so I got audited and like, yeah. And I ended up just like DJing for cash in Chicago for 6 months while I was being audited because all my assets were locked up. And I think that's my biggest regret now is like 3 years ago, I bought a house and the moment I started buying the house or started that process and learning about it and all that, I was just like, why didn't I do this 15 years ago? Like I am so dumb for renting as long as I did. And I'm so, that's the real, and from that point forward, and so many other like even like bigger artists like Mr. Bill, like I essentially like bullied him. I constantly yelled at him to buy a house. Like I was like, buy a house. I don't care where it is, buy something. You have extra money right now, spend it. Don't like keep it stagnating because money is not valuable when it's stagnant. It's valuable when it's the velocity of money is a real thing.
If you just keep money in a checking account, I mean, it loses like 3% a year just by not being in like a tangible thing, either investments, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, or like a house.
Yeah, and a house is like the no-brainer for a musician, I think, because you can have a studio where you're not, typically you're not connected to somebody else, at least in America. And I think the biggest area that I run into is I have a lot of musician friends who live in LA or Portland or New York. And they're just like, no, like just this generation can't afford houses. And it's like, well, in 1980 or 1970, that generation couldn't afford houses in Hollywood or Beverly Hills. Like they had to move out to the suburbs or they had to move somewhere else. And that's the reality of it is like a lot of people, they just don't want to leave a city that they live in a cool city for, and that's understandable, but that's the biggest thing I always press. If it's not a house, just learn how money works. Spend time doing it. Like buy, even if it's like the GameStop thing. Like, that was so depressing because I was amused by how many people I heard like mansplaining how shorting works to me or other people, like how margin trading works and getting it wrong in their explanation. Like they had no idea what they were talking about, but they were like, nah, check it out. This is how, and I'm like, what? Yeah. And then now with the NFT thing, I think that's why I had such a dog in that fight is because I'm very, very familiar with blockchain and crypto and I've been investing in it for ages. And like, you need to make supplemental income if you're a musician, if you want to die on a mattress.
A lot of artists seem to be pretty bad with money, and I mean, like it's also complicated. I feel like the tax part of being an artist or any kind of like self what do you call it? I don't know, like you work for yourself. You have your own business. It's really complicated when you start diving into what you do for taxes. It's like it's stressful, and then also since you don't have an employer forcing you to like, or not forcing you, but like encouraging you to contribute to like a 401k or having you have a healthcare plan or whatever other benefits your employer has. It's like you're not being like pushed into the direction that someone working at like a big company would get pushed into.
And for years, I would say get an accountant who just make sure that you put aside some money for an accountant when tax year comes and have a professional do it. And I did that, and I had an accountant. In 2 years, my tax accountant didn't file my taxes, and then vanished. And it was like, There's actually a name for the scam, and it's actually quite common, where you just have an accountant and they tell you, no,
Wow.
I got it all taken care of, and sign here and sign here, and then they just deposit the money into their own account. And then I had to like go pay back
Wow.
taxes. I was just
Oh,
like, okay,
geez.
well, I have to learn how to do my own taxes. And once I learned that, it didn't, I mean, it took a week.
Yeah.
It took, a little bit of reading here and there, and I got all my deductions, and I paid surprisingly much lower than I thought I'd owe. And yeah, it's not,
Wow.
um, but I think the big problem, and this happens with athletes too, it's sort of the same thing, is like in music, you don't really get paid in this slow and steady way. You generally get paid. You have these moments where you sign a new contract, or where you land a deal with somebody, something like that, or where you
Yeah.
get paid up front and you may have to recoup it if you don't sell enough, especially with record labels and things like that. Um,
Right.
and so learning how to take a large sum of money and spread and essentially make money from that, and spread it out is not something that we inherently know, and it's not something we
Yeah.
learn in school, unless you go to like business management. I don't even know if business management school would teach you that. Like,
Probably not.
yeah, and there's a lot of incentive for nobody to know what the fuck to do with money. There's a whole bunch of incentive.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of people who do very well because people have no idea what they're doing when it comes to finance. And
Yeah, for sure. I mean, college loans are kind of a kind of a, you have people who
Oh,
are
yeah,
taking out like
sure.
$70,000 in loans for
Yeah.
a degree that has no potential of paying it back. They're kind of preying on that person's dreams and the reality that they don't know anything about money. They don't realize that taking out this loan for this big thing that has no chance of paying it back is a horrible move.
Yeah, and it's like an 18-year-old who has not had any education whatsoever with money. And at this day, in this day and age, like they may have a little bit more because at least the GameStop thing happened, so they heard
Yeah.
about shorting, like whatever, like
And
they
they've heard of like
Dogecoin.
Dogecoin going up by like a factor of 5 in like 2 days.
Yeah, I'm watching. On one of my screens here. I actually have the live Dogecoin charts.
What's it at right now?
30. Yeah.
Okay, I sold most of mine yesterday
I
and today.
shorted it. I shorted it and traded it back at 27. So I bought in at like 43 and traded back at 47. I'm all anti-confidence. I'm all like, this is gonna fail. I'm shorting it.
I didn't even know you could short crypto.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Oh.
You can short crypto. The
That's
more
interesting.
popular ones, but you could also. It was funny because I actually had to work a bit. I did like do some pancake swap stuff to like short Dogecoin, but you could actually now there's Doge Bear, which is a literal. It's just an inversion. It's like an inverted Dogecoin essentially. Like it's minus whatever margin they're taking. I don't know the details of it, but yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Finance stuff gets like deep and complicated. I'm not like super in that world. I know enough that when I see like a valuable company doing bad, I know like, oh, I'm gonna buy some of this because like they're gonna come back, or like I try to diversify investments. And when I bought Doge and it was 7 cents because I was going, Elon Musk is tweeting about it. It's gonna have its day.
Yeah.
where it blows up. And so I made like a couple grand in the past few days on Doge, which was nice, and sold out. And who knows, maybe I'll be that idiot in 10 years when Dogecoin is worth $50,000 or something that sold all his Doge, but I doubt it.
I had 2,000 Bitcoins at one point. So
so you were one of those people.
I had well over $100 million in today's today's Bitcoin.
Man, that's the worst.
It's funny because I did read somebody. I read some thread somewhere. I was like on Reddit or something where somebody was talking about that they mined and bought some Doge 2 years ago, and then they sold it like a year ago for a little bit more than what they paid for it. And everybody's like, you're a fucking idiot. And it's like, no, he's not. Like, this is a meme currency. Like the fact that he sold it is like a good move that most people would recommend at any state of its
Yeah, I mean, you can't predict the future. I mean, people kick themselves for all sorts of investments. But
really, that's like yelling at somebody for like playing blackjack and breaking even and not wanting to play blackjack anymore and being, you're a fucking idiot. The next guy had Blackjack. What?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hindsight's 2020. Those people are just being jerks, and I mean, it doesn't. It still hurts when you know. I mean, I remember I almost bought Facebook when it had its IPO,
Yeah.
and it would have whatever I put in would have been worth like 15 times more, which is
Sure.
kind of a
Yeah.
bummer. And like, there's a couple other times it's happened where I've like almost hit the buy button on something, but I was like, oh, you know, at the time I was working at like Starbucks, and I'm like, I can't really
Yeah.
afford to invest in things, and just didn't. And but it's like, you know, you can't predict the future. You don't know.
Yeah, and I think that like I mean, loss aversion is like a really, really powerful psychological thing that drives people to make absolutely terrible decisions. Like one of my favorite examples of loss aversion is if we were in a casino and like let's say that you put $100 on a roulette table and we're just standing there and you put $100 on 38, right?
Yeah.
And it lands on 42. How upset from 1 to 10 are you going to be if that happened?
I guess an 8 because it's very close to 42 or 38.
Yeah.
It's only off by 4, right?
Okay, now let's say that I was like, all right, well, yeah, roulette's fun. And I was like, oh, dude, check out this synth on my phone and, you know, whatever. And they roll it again. And then it lands on 38 when you didn't bet on it. How upset are you now?
Oh, for very upset because now it's
Yeah,
like
right.
you just had it on, then you took it off. You stayed in one
Yeah.
more round, you would have made it.
So you're more upset when you didn't lose anything than you are than when you lost $100. That's the
Yeah.
fallacy of loss aversion. It's
Yeah.
like it doesn't work mathematically. It works it functions very emotionally. And so
Yeah, it is true. I mean, like, there's a lot of investments that kind of mentality has probably saved me from over the years. You know, oh, I want to buy this, and then you don't, and then, you know, in reality, if you paid attention to it, no one really talks about the companies that like tank. You know, they talk about the people who were made millionaires overnight because Bitcoin like exploded or whatever.
yeah.
So that's a good
And
point.
there always has to be a level of humility too. Like you're not like people who think that they're gaming the system. I mean, people think that Dogecoin is gaming the crypto world. And it's like you're not gaming. Like who do you think you are? Like there's people who like even in doing my NFT video, I talked to enough people who were like Ethereum developers and stuff to where like their intelligence just blew my mind. Like they knew more than I could ever hope to know about that world. And it's like, and you think that, you know, you're going to get one up on them in this? Like, no, they're way ahead. And then even more so in like the GameStop thing. It's like, you guys are going to try and like, you're going to burn margin traders. Like these are multi-billion-dollar firms who like that. You're not going to burn them. They're just going to end up putting more leverage on the bottom, and then you're just going to make them a bunch of money when they crash it. Like, you know, Doge is actually 23% one broker. You know
23% one broker.
Yeah, there's a whale. Yeah, 23% of Doge is just one wallet address. Yeah, it's like that's why I shorted it. I was like, I'm gonna short this, but yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I saw it go up and then start going down, and I was just like, "There's no way this can go on forever." You know
It got to 420, so.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, 42069 was. Yeah, that was
for Doge Day.
Yep. Yeah, so it did it. But yeah. Other than that, though, I mean, there are good cryptos that I think aren't really that huge risks. Like I think they're going to bounce around 10% consistently, but I think they're always going to bounce around 10% and get higher and higher as they do it. And like I'm a big fan of Tezos. That's like a big when you actually look at the white paper and the support that has, like BMW is training hundreds of developers on it to use for like self-driving cars. It's perfect for things like NFTs and it's perfect for things like digital contract development, things like that. Like that's a coin that's not going to fall apart, you know, during a bear market. That's that's like a blockchain that's going to stay consistently growing no matter what. And it has a lot of brilliant minds behind it. And I think France
it doesn't destroy the environment like all the other ones.
Yeah, not nearly as fast at least, but yeah. I mean, I minted an NFT on a Raspberry Pi with one, just to see if I could do it just out of curiosity. When doing my video, I didn't actually do this segment, but I was going to mint one using solar power.
That's interesting.
But yeah, I minted one just using Raspberry Pi 3, and yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really weird, and I don't I don't understand it as good as I wish I did. But the people who are in it, I feel like don't understand it even more than I don't understand it, and that
yeah,
kind of makes me nervous because, I mean, like I'm pretty technologically savvy. I mean, like I have a master's degree in engineering, and so like
okay,
I'm looking at like the people who are like explaining this on Twitter,
yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know anything about this, but I know you're wrong. It's,
Yeah,
um,
you know, and that's a real interesting thing with me too, because like a lot of the misconceptions come from like TikTok explainers, which is
yeah.
like my fucking pet peeve, man. Like the people, TikTok to me, this is another reason why I need an assistant, like somebody to basically like somebody who's younger than me who can be like, oh, I know, I understand the TikTok thing. I literally fall asleep scrolling through it. I got it because I don't get it. Because
Yeah.
to me, it's either like really bad advice, somebody like intentionally injuring themselves, somebody faking intentionally injuring themselves, or the worst of all is somebody discovering something that already exists that everybody at least my age already knows about, and then
Yep.
it's a life hack. Like, dude, check this out. Two pieces of wood. If you take this nail and you take this weird thing and hammer it, you could get them together, and then you could
Yeah.
build something. It's like, yeah, we already knew that though.
A
Like,
lot of TikTok is getting stuff that's on YouTube and making it short.
yep,
That's what
yeah, that too.
a
Yeah.
lot of TikTok is. I mean, I guess like Vine, and I guess there's a different version of this. But the thing with TikTok, since you have a minute, it's like
Yeah.
you can actually. There's a lot of like education content now,
Hmm. Yeah.
and it's a lot of those channels are basically becoming like mini YouTubers where they're making like series of 1 minute videos that.
Yeah, and they're and I feel like it's just a race to have as much content as fast as possible.
Yeah, it is.
And when it comes to something like explaining crypto or, stocks or something, it's like there's a lot of room for error, and those errors cost people a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so like part of me is like when you look at a market, when you look at something like Doge, or when you look at anything like that, and you see that a huge influx of people are coming from that world that like I have this disdain for. My immediate thing is like, you're not allowed in this space. You're stupid, but that's such a shit way to look at it. Like, no, they probably should know, and that's why I made my NFT video. I didn't make it just to like piss people off. I made it because it was
Yeah.
like, there's a fork in the road right now, and we're all headed towards the proof of stake system one way or another. We're headed there. Like Ethereum 2.0 is that. Like we're all
Hmm.
going there. So why would we go here instead of there now? Like, and in that time we can actually speed up the process of moving actual full blockchains over to proof of stake, which will save the planet a whole lot of carbon. Like realistically,
Yeah.
like that will just be a very good move. There's no arguing that that's
The
not.
the issue that like the reason why I think NFTs are kind of like silly is that
Yeah.
people are kind of they're selling something that is infinite by putting an arbitrary limit on it.
Yeah. No,
Most
yeah.
of the time. I mean, like you're
they're
getting a
definitely
file
creating.
that you can make infinite copies of and saying, no,
Yeah.
you own this file.
Yeah. Yeah. You're creating this like artificial scarcity, but not really. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like I don't like think it's necessarily bad, but it just I don't know. It just feels kind of stupid to me.
Yeah. I don't fully. I think it's like it's something that nobody's ever asked for. But that being said, a way that because I always play devil's advocate, and I was trying to
Yeah.
like really think of like how would this be functional for me, like how would I actually be able to see the light of day on this, see like some sort of positive spin of it. And one thing I thought of is like the amount of people when I play a show somewhere, and if I like go out to the bar after my performance, the amount of people who want to take a picture with me. And I kind of thought of that as like they want, like the reason they do that is not because I make them look good or bad. The reason the reason they do that is because it's just a special one of a kind thing that they have that
Yeah.
is memorabilia for the show that they saw. They're not taking the show home with them. They're
Yeah,
just
they're taking like a memory of the show home
unique
with them.
thing. And so I tried to think of it that way. And I guess it could make a little bit of sense, but Like
Yeah.
just the fact that we're paying gas fees for it is just like, what? Why? Why in the world would you do that? Like, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
But and it sucks because I'm like getting more and more disdain for artists who are continuing to do it, who, you know, are people that I otherwise respect a whole lot. I'm just like, you know, this is wrong. Like, there's no like I understand maybe in like February I could see how like somebody who wasn't familiar with crypto would be like, have no idea that like NFTs on Ethereum were, you know, a pretty wasteful thing for
Yeah.
energy and for, you know, money. But now there's like, everybody knows. there's no more
Yeah.
two sides to it. Like, everybody
Yeah.
knows. Yeah. But,
Anyways, man. So I could probably talk to you for hours,
yeah.
but I actually have to go.
Okay.
I gotta say bye to my girlfriend before she goes to work.
Oh, okay.
And then I do have a call in 15 minutes. But yeah. Thanks so much for doing this call.
Yeah, no problem. It was fun.
And actually, well, after I'll talk to you for a sec after we end the chat. But you know, thanks everyone for hanging out. Some of you have been here the whole time, which has been dope. Go check out Ben's YouTube channel at the very least.
Yeah.
A lot
And
of
I think I'm
people.
gonna be streaming tomorrow at 10, I think 10 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Yeah. So go check out his channel because a lot of people when I do a consultation, they're like, "Oh, it's awesome to meet you. I feel like I already know you," and
yeah.
I have that feeling talking to Ben because I watch all his videos. So, because like it's I don't know, it's a weird YouTuber thing when you watch someone and then you talk to him, you feel like you already know him, even though
Right. Yeah.
it's a fun experience. But anyways, yeah. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Have a good night. End